I want to talk to you for a moment about the message that God has laid upon my heart for this conference. And this title of the message is The Black Bride. Now, when we read the book of Song of Songs, or in Hebrew, Shir HaShirim, we're finding something very, very interesting about the Song of Songs. In Song of Songs, we sing a dialogue between Israel, who is called the bride, and God, who is resemble a groom. Now, there is a passage in the beginning of chapter 1 that you will notice that God is speaking as the groom, and then the bride respond, and then the groom responds. So it's important to understand also how to read the book of the Song of Songs. The way you approach the Song of Songs is as a dialogue between a couple that is getting ready to get married. Now, there is a problem with the bride that I think is relevant for Africa specifically, but is available for all of us. The bride doesn't see itself as being worthy. The bride finds every excuse not to go forward with the marriage. And if you look at the history of Israel, you will notice that God always tried to set up a wedding. God is in the wedding business. He tried to set up a wedding in the Garden of Eden between Adam and Eve and himself. Well, in chapter 3, Adam ran away. And God says, where are you? I'm ready for the wedding. Then he created another wedding, because this wedding went bad. It's on Mount Sinai. And instead of being there and waiting for him, what did we do? We created a golden calf. We created another groom. And the issue has always been, since this point, of God of obsession. You know, when God created the world, he created the world in 10 words, in 10 articles. How many commandments he gave Israel? 10. How many plagues he gave? 10. How many trials Abraham went through? 10. Why do we see this number 10 repeating again and again? Because ever since what's happened in the garden, God wanted to rectify again what took place in the garden. And what is God's ultimate job? Ultimate desire is to build a tabernacle, a place where we will tabernacle with him. Now, in order in Jewish wedding to have a actual wedding, there are one thing that is critical. The bride have to agree to the term of the wedding, and the bride have to be ready. This is a standard Jewish ceremony of wedding. It's not enough to say that the groom is ready. The bride has to be ready. And even in Yeshua's own words in Matthew 23, Yeshua said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I long to gather you. The idea of gathering, the language that is used by Yeshua himself is a language of a wedding. The idea of gathering is the idea of purchasing. And when I married my wife, we stood in front of the what's called a canopy, which is a tabernacle. How appropriate this is it? And we opened the marriage contract, and the bride have to agree to the terms that is given by the groom. And if the bride does not sign the wedding certificate, the wedding cannot proceed forward. And this is just the very first step. Now, Israel, throughout time, they said to God, yes, we're getting ready to get married. They said on Mount Sinai, we will do and we will listen. But they didn't. They didn't fully went on with the wedding. And God has been obsessed since this time. He sent us the prophets, and then he sent us the words of John and Yeshua that they saw about make a way in the hour. Make a way for what? Have you ever stopped yourself a question? Make a way for a wedding. I'll make a way to a wedding because the bride is the one who have to march. When you say make a highway for the Lord, it is not a highway for God. It's a mistake. It's the highway for you and I. It is a highway for you and I to be able to come in and to be inside a tabernacle. A tabernacle is where people, ladies and gentlemen, is a place where people are getting married. But there is a problem in this bride. The bride doesn't see herself as being worthy. Today, I really believe that part of the issue that we're dealing with, especially in America, but in other areas, is that people do not see their worth, their net worth in the eyes of God. And even the bride, to a degree, prostituting itself and diminishing herself because she does not see what the groom has seen in her. Today, people look at Africa and they say, what possibly is going to be valuable to come out of Africa? Not good, very good things came out of Africa and infected Africa. Poverty, HIV, diseases. What good can come out of Africa? How appropriate it is that they ask Yeshua exactly the same question. What good can come out of the Galilee? What good can come out of Nazareth? Much in every way. The reminder of the Feast of Tabernacle is the reminder of your worth. It's a reminder of what God has in store for you and I as He's standing. So let's continue with this analogy for a second. When a Jewish wedding takes place, it is a canopy that have to be established. Number one, make yourself a note, a canopy, a sukkah, a tabernacle has to be established. The first thing you and I have to do is to establish a tabernacle that the groom will say, hey, it is worthy. It is worthy for me to come in and enter into this sukkah. When we look at Yeshua specifically, and the tabernacle, what we have built for him, let's call it the church. I must say today that the tabernacle that has been established for him is unworthy of the type of groom he is. Therefore, it is difficult for him to show up to the wedding because the tabernacle is not his own tabernacle. There is some specific things that have to be in these tabernacles. Number one, in the tabernacle, as the tabernacle I'm here under right now, you have to see the heavens. It cannot be completely closed. What does that mean? It means that God has to be always supervising this tabernacle. Let me say it again. If we build a house to God without God willing to tabernacle in it, because we are closing him in institutions, in building. In essence, we say, God, yeah, we love you. We build this for you, but you're not really welcome here. But God says, no, you don't understand. You build a tabernacle with me. You're not building a tabernacle for me. You're building it with me. And that's why he wants the roof to be open. He wants to be able to see. Number two, the groom has to enter to the canopy by himself. He has to enter to the sukkah by himself. You want to know why Yeshua have to go back to his father? And he said, I'm preparing this place because he have to come alone into the sukkah. Because in a way, he is in a seat of glory. When you're inside the sukkah, he's in a seat of glory. Now, when Yeshua descended down, check this out with me, please understand it. And he came and he took upon himself a humanly form. He descended, he left the seat of glory. When I married my wife in the Jewish ceremony, it is the groom who leave the sukkah and he go outside the sukkah to meet his bride halfway. Yeshua wants to meet his bride halfway, even to the point that he is willing to leave his own sukkah. He have a heavenly tabernacle. Scripture tells us he have a heavenly tabernacle, but he's willing to leave it in order for you, the bride, to know just how much worthy you are. You see, but the bride has a problem. The bride have to be able to walk and to meet the groom all the way in the middle. And right then they walk into the canopy together. If you're wondering how is the final wedding going to look like, it's very interesting. The scripture tells us that he is coming with all the saints. Now there is another set of people who are showing up into this sukkah. into this wedding. It's the invitees to the wedding. Ladies and gentlemen, the invitees have a responsibility to do. The groom and the bride cannot see each other in a wedding, okay? Absolutely forbidden for the groom and to the bride to see each other. The groom is in one side, the bride is in the other side. The invitees have a job to do, and their job is to go and knock on the door of the groom and say to the groom, "Groom, time for a wedding. It's time." And they actually ushering him. They're going before the groom and they're ushering into the canopy. You, brothers and sisters, are invitees, honor invitees into this wedding. What do you mean, Rabbi Shapira? Are we not the bride? Wait, there is more to this story. You are invited guests. The book of Matthew called it all the saints who will come before Yeshua. They are there and they're going to usher Yeshua. And you wonder where you're going to end up. You're going to end up in Jerusalem because the last wedding is going to be taking place in Jerusalem. You are going to be there in the day of the great Sukkah. The book of Revelation tells us so that this is happening in Sukkot, in the Feast of Tabernacles. In a minute, you will see it with me. Now, your job is to go before him and to prepare him. So when the people put the palm branches just like this, they, in essence, they say, "We are ready for," and they say, "Hosanna," in John chapter 13, when they laid it and they say, "Hosanna, son of David, Hosanna, son of David." In essence, they say, "We're welcoming the groom. We are welcoming the groom. We are welcoming into the tabernacle." Today, you and I have a job to do. It is to welcome the groom. And so he will be able to go and get the bride. So who is the bride? Does that mean that one who is not the bride is not important? Of course he is important. As you're going to see in the end of the story, those invited guests have a very unique and special role in these last days. But look at the real problem of the bride. The real problem of the bride today is the fact that the bride says, "I can't walk down the aisle. I can't walk down the aisle. And the reason I can't walk down the aisle, I am not worthy." Look at us with me together at what it says in the Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 5. It says, "I am dark." It doesn't say I am dark. She said, "I am black. I am black, but I am beautiful. You daughters of Jerusalem, like a tent of Kedar, like a curtains of Solomon." Friends, let me say this to you. This is, ladies and gentlemen, a direct prophecy of the identity of this bride. This bride have an element to her that is black. The reason is there a scattered seed among the house of Israel today. We might not understand it, but the rabbis of Israel understood it. They said, because the Jewish people are scattered all over the place, there is a part of the bride that is going to be black. Literally that. But the bride is also known as the daughter of Jerusalem. Now notice that the thing about this bride, it's mentioned like the tent of Kedar, like the curtain of Solomon. This is a prophetic language. This is a metaphoric language, speaking about the tent of Kedar, the curtain of Solomon. That's when the bride is in its fullness. The tents of Kedar, the curtain of Solomon speak about when the bride is fullness, but the bride doesn't see her as the daughter of Jerusalem. She sees her, she says she is black. It doesn't mean here black in a good connotation either. She's saying, "I am nothing. I am empty. I have nothing to offer to the groom." Today, Africa needs to know that you have something. I love what Pastor Haroun was saying. There is something to offer. There is something great to offer to the king who is coming to marry the bride. And the bride has to recognize what it is. So look at me at what the rabbis of Israel said. They said, no, you do not read this verse correctly. And they said there is a misunderstanding in the way you read this verse. The word in Hebrew for the word daughters is the word banot. Now look at that with me. Ben is son, bat is daughter, banim is plural son, banot is the plural daughters. This is Song of Songs 1:5. Look what the rabbi says. Our rabbi said, don't read this as the daughters of Jerusalem, banot of Yerushalayim, but rather read it as the word bonot of Yerushalayim, which mean the builders of Jerusalem. This is the great Sanhedrin of Israel says, who sit and direct its construction. The way the verse actually should be able to read, at least the way our rabbis explain this, it says, I am dark, I am black, but I am beautiful. You are become a builders of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtain of Solomon. God does not look at the past to establish the future. He's look at each and every one of you at your potential. And he's saying you are called to be in a high potential, to build the tents of Kedar, to build the curtain of Solomon. He's talking about the establishing of the future temple, the future house of God. And he said, yes, you might think that you are not beautiful. She said, I'm dark but beautiful, but she doesn't really mean it. The bride doesn't mean it. As you're going to see in a minute, the bride is making so many excuses for itself why it is not worthy. And I want to tell you today, if anybody watching me today from Africa or from the African American community who have been condemned, you know something. Condemnation is not from God. Condemnation is from the adversary. And God is saying those daughters who appear black, they're going to be the builders of Jerusalem. Are you hearing what I'm telling you? God is giving us a prophecy here, say that those people who are black by skin, they're going to be the future builders of the house of Jerusalem. This is an amazing and a miraculous prophecy. God is not done with Africa. It is those people who are African and African American descent, they will serve at the temple. They will be builders of the highway. God has said so, and I believe for what God is saying. Do you believe to the prophecies that have left to us by the house of Israel? Look with me at this. Now we understand he's talking about the builders. Will there be builders from the people who are called black? Of course they will be. They will be building the next temple. God says so, and I believe for this. Look at this. Exodus Rabbah continues, say another explanation of the daughters of Banot of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yochanan said, in the future, Jerusalem will become the metropolis of all the land. As it is says, Ashdod with her town. That's a southern town by Gaza Strip. What does it like the tent of Kedar means? What does that mean? Just as the tent of the Ishmaelites are ugly on the outside. Let me say it to you today. Just as the tent of the Ishmaelites are ugly on the outside and beautiful within, so are the wise. Even though they appear ugly to the world, within they are filled with Torah and with parables. Can somebody shout and say to me, with me right now, who is watching and say, hallelujah. God does not look at our color as our qualification to what's considered beautiful or not beautiful. The key here is the world will look and say, it's black, it's ugly, it is not good. But this is not the standard of the groom. It is a standard of the world. There is a difference between the standard of the world to the standard of the Lord. And we need to understand this. This is the bride himself who is accusing itself. It is the bride who is self-accusing itself. And say, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough because who I am, my appearance. The appearance of Africa to the world, if I may be frank, is not good. It's not good. There's always a need, there's always a calamity, there's always a pandemic. But that is not the way God is looking at Africa. That is not the way He's looking at the African American community today. Brothers and sisters, listen to me. God is looking to see what is inside your tent, not the way you look on the outside, what is inside your heart. And as long as in your heart and long as in your house there is a Torah, there is the parables, your house is beautiful, to the point that the rabbi said, even to the Ishmaelites, even to them, don't judge. Do not judge others, because you do not know what is inside. God knows. The problem today with the bride, the problem today with Africa, I am telling you today, under the influence of the Holy Spirit, is that you are your worst enemy. You are the worst enemy. The reason Africa has not come to the tent is because Africa does not believe that Africa is worthy and Africa is ready to come to the tent. That is what the bride says. I am not ready. I am not good enough. I'm not beautiful enough. And God says, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? In a minute, we're going to get to the response of God. I'm telling you, friends, I want you to hear this today, because the world right now is in the business of labeling. And the Sukkah of God is saying, I am open. I am a beautiful sukkah inside. And if you want to beautify the sukkah, like in my sukkah, we come and we decorate it. And my son does this and my wife does this. We beautify the sukkah together. And Africa, I have a calling to play in beautifying God's sukkah. And shame on us for not understanding it. And shame on those who do not understand how much they can add. To the point that the prophet Isaiah even said that the Africa, those who have been from the nation, they become like an ornament inside the sukkah. Your ornament is not going to be in a Christmas tree. Your ornaments are going to be in a sukkah. I don't know how God is going to reconcile it, but there will be a ornament. The nations are the ornament. Africa is going to be the ornament in the sukkah of the house of Israel. Hallelujah. Look at this with me again. This is incredible. It doesn't matter what is the outside. Look to the world. What is inside the house of Africa today is matter. And that's why if the house of Africa will adopt today the house of Israel, if today they will be beautified. If you enter into the house of Israel, you will be beautified. Look at me at the response. The response of the bride. This is absolutely shocking to see how the bride is acting. The black bride. I really believe that this is a message for Africa today about the black bride. She said, don't look at me. She said, don't look at me. What you mean is that? Don't look at me. I am ugly. This is really what the Hebrew says. Al tiruni shani shcharchoret. Don't look at me because I'm dark. Because the sun has looked on me. My mother's sons were angry with me and made me keeper of the vineyard, my own vineyard. I have not kept. It is true. What the pastor has been speaking about earlier is true. You have been robbed. You have been robbed by many things that been introduced into Africa that I had no business to introduce to Africa. But, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I am not offending everybody. But if I'm offending you today, good, it's from the Holy Spirit. Don't make excuses. The problem with this bride is a bride that is full of excuses. It is true that a lot of things, especially in America, especially on the racial side, a lot of things are gone wrong. But those cannot be the excuse for the bride not to come into the canopy, into the sukkah. And that is what the bride is doing today. She's making an excuse. Oh, I'm too angry. I don't like the flowers. I'm not going to come in. I'm too upset. The food is not to my liking. And we are in a society today. I read what Mrs. Masiyiwa said earlier today. We are in a society that the bride is a one angry bride. The bride, I'm not talking about those outside. I am talking about the bride of Messiah. Is one angry bride. And the bride is really becoming angry at the groom night now. Beloved, the groom is not angry. The groom desired the bride. The groom loved the black bride. The groom said to Africa today, to the bride, I love you. I love you, Africa. I love you, African American. Come on, come the way you are. I made you this way. Don't get angry. Understand the future I have for you. People are getting, and by the way, I don't know if my wife listened to this. If my wife listened to this message right now, I would appreciate a glass of water. If somebody's watching, I would really appreciate it. I'm getting so excited, and it's about 35 degrees Celsius. So hopefully nothing will catch on fire here except to the holy fire of God and the Holy Spirit. Friends, I am telling you right now that the bride has to stop making excuses. Make yourself a note in this, because in a minute you're going to read the response to the black bride that the groom is giving. And the response for the groom, by the groom, is absolutely the message that we have to take with us into the Sukkot. Listen to what he's saying. Tell me, you who I love so well, where do you pasture the sheep? Where do you rest them at noon? Let me not be as one who stray beside the flocks of your fellows. Okay? And there, listen, this is still the bride speaking. Listen to the answer of the groom. If you do not know, oh, you don't know? You have no idea. Oh, most hayafa shebanashim. You are the most beautiful. You are the most beautiful. Go follow the track of the sheep and graze your kids by the tents of your shepherd. The answers of the groom to the bride is the answer that God has for Africa today. I am telling you this under the influence of the Holy Spirit. And God is saying today, God is saying to us today, don't you know Africa? Don't you know Africa? Don't you know the black bride? That you are the most beautiful one. You are the one I love. You are the one I desire. Why do you think that I don't love you? I love you. I desire you. You are the most beautiful one. Fairest of all women, meaning in Hebrew, you are the one I desire. I desire you more than anything else. That's why now everything connecting the dots. When Africa coming to know the fullness of the Messiah, when Africa coming to this fullness, that means that the wedding will take place. Hallelujah. Praise be to God. Thank you, Lord, for this. Thank you. Thank you, Lord, for the brides He also given us. Excuse me just a second as I take a sip of water. Thank you for our brides. He is giving the instruction to the bride how to get set free from her battle in her mind, that thinking she is not worthy. What the bride have to do is 3 things, and I want to leave you with those 3 things for the black bride today. These are telling you something. I wrote this message in 5 minutes. God spoke to me in the middle of the night. He gave me this passage, and He spoke to me in 5 minutes. And He said, give it to the people of God today. So whoever you are, I want you to make a note of the 3 words in the Hebrew Bible that God is saying here. First one is the word go. Please make a note of the word go. In a minute, we will talk about the word go. Why is it important? It's not a regular go. Okay, the second thing I want you to notice here is the word tracks. Tracks. Make a note of the word tracks. And the third word I want you to pay attention to is the word sheep. Again, here's the 3 words I want you to pay attention to today. Go. I want you to pay attention to the word tracks, and I want you to pay attention to the word sheep. Those are 3 significant words. Let's take them together. First of all, the word go. Who is the one who received the word go first? Who is the one that God says go to? In Hebrew, you read it as go, but in Hebrew, it's actually, in English, you read it as walk. In Genesis chapter 12, the promise that God is given to Abraham. He said, go to the new place. Leave the older place behind, go to the new place. But it's actually the words go for yourself. He says in Hebrew, lech lecha, Now look again at the language that is used here in the text, in the context of Song of Songs. He says, Se'ilach, which in here in English translated as go follow, but that's not what the Hebrew said. The Hebrew doesn't say go follow. That's not at all what the Hebrew said. The Hebrew said go for your own benefit. He is instituted again the covenant of Abraham. God says to the bride, the very first thing I want you to do is become a bride of a covenant. If you feel unworthy today, it's because you have left a covenant. You have lost the covenants. The very first thing that God is saying to do to you today, if you're watching me today, and you want to be this black, beautiful bride, you have to reclaim again the covenant. The very first thing the African and the African American community have to do is to reclaim the covenant, the Abrahamic, the Mosaic, the Davidic, and the new covenants. All of those covenants are causing to the bride to regain her identity. You see, the problem with the bride is really that the bride doesn't understand her own identity and to the love of the groom. So we say, okay, the very first thing I want you to do is to reclaim back your own identity. You want to know why we pour our life, our hearts every day? Second, in establishing a school in Africa, not because we need another school, not just because we need another seminary. That is not the point. The point is your identity. The point is the identity of the black bride. She lost her identity. She's unsure. She's uncertain. But God says, don't worry. Go and claim back. Lech, go to yourself. Go in a journey. Start this journey today and find again the covenant that you have lost. You heard today about the Lemba people, how they lost the covenant. And I said to the Lemba people today, go and find the covenants. Go and reclaim them again. To the nations, I said, I know you've been taught that the Torah is done away with and you are no longer associated with anything in the Old Testament. I wonder what Yeshua would think about this. The same guy that the church called upon himself, who said that not one word, one jot, and one tittle will pass until heaven and earth pass. I wonder what he think about that. Of course, that the bride need to have a covenant. The covenant is how she claim her identity. What is the second thing that the groom is telling the bride? This is very important. He's telling the bride again, look at this with me again. He's telling her, follow the tracks of the sheep. Notice the term, follow the tracks. Today, Pastor Philani quoted from Psalm 89. This is the way the Spirit of God is moving. I was already intending to speak about Psalm 89 myself today as well. Look what it says in Psalm 89. It says, remember, my Lord, the mockery against your servants that I hear in my heart from so many people. How your enemies have mocked Adonai. How they have mocked the footsteps of the Messiah. Please understand what is going to happen in the last days. In the last days, ladies and gentlemen, people will try to wipe out the existence of God from the world. How do they do that? They try to wipe out his footsteps by removing God from our governments, removing God from our judicial system, removing God from our society. And that's exactly what the scripture said. Those will be the days that you have to look for the footsteps of the anointed one. Pastor Matt created a program called Kosher Pastor for that exact reason, so that you will find the footsteps of the shepherd. Who is the shepherd? Yeshua is the shepherd. If you do not know the real, authentic Jewish Messiah, then more than likely you're going to follow a different set of footsteps, a different path to the wedding. Yeah, the church might think that they're going to have a meeting with God, but the church will not have a meeting with God unless Israel is there. There is no way, because God does not have two brides. He's not a polygamist. He have one bride, and his bride is called Israel. Now listen, he's telling you, find the Messiah. Find the steps again. Find the steps of the anointed one. Make sure that the world does not come today to try to shake your ability of finding the roots of your faith, the roots of the footsteps. The further and further that we get into in our world today, it is harder to see those footsteps. That's why you need to have a magnifying glass. You need to have holding of the covenants, because that's the only way that they can see the right footsteps of the right anointed one. And the last thing that is being said here, look at this. What did he say? He said, by the way, one more thing I want to mention before I go there. Look what Paul says in Romans 11:25. Say, for I do not want you, brothers and sisters, to be ignorant of the mystery. Let be wise in your own eyes, that the partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentile has come in. And in this way, all of Israel will be saved. How does Israel getting saved? Ladies and gentlemen, how is Israel getting saved? Is by the Gentiles who are finding the footsteps of the Messiah. When the Gentiles find the authenticity of the Messiah, Israel's salvation is complete, because the nations are engrafted themselves to the house of Israel. When the part of the bride, which is the black bride, the nations is a whole, is one big bride, is becoming whole, all of Israel's salvation becoming whole. We need you, Africa. We need you to find today the fullness of your faith. Without this fullness, it means that you're not following the right tracks. And it means that you cannot be the guests of honor who will awaken the groom. You have a chance today and a responsibility and a duty to welcome the groom. What an amazing thing. But please show up to the right wedding. Lastly, look at what it says there. It says, he said, to find the shepherd. Find the shepherd itself. Who is the shepherd? Who is those shepherd that we have to find? Well, this shepherd has two names in the scripture. Both the Messiah is called shepherd, and Israel called also, sheep. Both Israel called the sheep and the Messiah is called the shepherd, and that's why we're seeing here in the text. Look with me. It says, we have all like sheep have gone astray. Each one turned in his own way. We are the sheep, okay? And then I said, Yeshua says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Again, what is the prophet is saying here? What is it said in Song of Songs? Read with me together. It says, and gave the kids by the tents of the shepherds. We need to be by the shepherds and by the sheep. We need to come closer to the mighty shepherd who is the Messiah. The Messiah is the mighty shepherd. Israel is the sheep by definition. If you want to find the shepherd, you're going to find the sheep. And Israel is the sheep. Yeshua is the shepherd. In essence, you cannot say, I'm coming back to the root of my faith. Oh, but those Jewish people, no, I want nothing to do with them. It is impossible. It is impossible. If you want to find the real shepherd that the groom is speaking of here, you're going to have to find the sheep. You are going to have to get closer to the Jewish people because they are close to the Messiah. Israel is the Son of God. The Messiah is the Son of God. They are one in the same, beloved. They're one in the same, and he's saying to you here, identify the real shepherd by identifying the sheep, Israel. You are grafted into the house of Israel. And I love what our rabbis had to say about this. They said the following: we also want to receive the similar revelation like Abraham. And in order to do so, we must look back at the footsteps of our Holy Father. Remember what he said, following in the footsteps, returning back to the faith of Abraham, returning back to Isaac, to Jacob, to Moses, to Aaron, returning back. We call upon you today, Shuvu, come back. God expects from each and every one of us to stand and gaze through the window, peering through the lattice, to awaken in us the love. Praise be to God that He is awakening right now the bride who thinks she's unworthy, the bride that thinks she's not good enough. He tells her, bride, the fullness is coming to you. And the way the fullness is coming for you, number one, you restore yourself to the covenant. Number two, he's saying to her, you are looking for the sheep, the house of Israel. Number three, you are looking to find the footsteps of the shepherd. And when all three come together, then we are getting ready to move into this great and awesome wedding that God has placed for us. That's why God says to the Gentiles specifically, ladies and gentlemen, therefore keep in mind that once you were Gentiles in the flesh, the bride have to be purchased. The bride have to be converted. When I married my wife, I had to buy her. I have to take money and I have to say, I have to purchase you. Purchase you for what? Purchase you for what? So she will be one with me. And that's what Yeshua has done. He has purchased you so that you will be able to enter into the covenants of the house of Israel. And he's saying here, Paul speaking to the Gentiles, he's saying here, you have been called uncircumcision by those who call circumcision. At this time, you were separate from Messiah, excluded from the commonwealth of Israel, and stranger to the covenant of promising, having no promise, no hope, and without God in the world. But now through Messiah Yeshua, you have once far off, you have been brought in. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Every day during the festival of Sukkot, we are opening the prayer book and we're praying that the Sukkah of Tabernacle of David will be established. It's be established. Listen, by 7 names, through Abraham, who has been mighty, through Isaac, who has been strong, through Jacob, who has bring mercy, through Moses, who gave intelligence, through Aaron, who brought joy, and through Joseph, who has given us the power of the ingathering. Think about it. Who is Joseph? Joseph is the one who has been estranged from his father Jacob. Yeshua today is like Joseph, and he came to the world so that you will be empowered to be gathered from the four corners of the earth. He is calling you today and say, I am in gathering you, oh bride, oh black bride. You've been far, you ran. Have you ever heard about this movie, Runaway Bride? When the bride ran away, the black bride is run away. But he said, oh, don't worry, you can run, but I know where you're at, and I'm making you a new path. I'm making you through Joseph, through Messiah, son of Joseph, through Yeshua the Messiah. I have making you a new path. Because listen to the last invitee of the wedding, Messiah, son of David. He will establish all things. When Yeshua return again, he's not going to appear as Joseph, as a suffering servant. He is going to be appearing as a king, a judge, and a ruler. And he's saying to us today, he's saying to the nations today, do you want to build the fallen tabernacle of David? If you want to do it, all what you have to do is to hold on to those things and know that you're worthy. I have given you a worthy ticket through me. I love you. I've given you a worthy ticket through me to walk into the covenants. But you cannot come to the wedding and say, groom, I reject the covenantal responsibility. In this, I don't sign what we agreed upon. If you do that, you cannot be part of this wedding. That's what he said. That's why we see in the conclusion of the book of Revelation, ladies and gentlemen, the book of Revelation, chapter 7, prophesied on the day that we are standing on the Hebrew calendar right this second. Look at this. After these days I looked, and behold, a vast multitude that nobody could count, from every nation, from every tribe, of every tongue, and every people, yes, every people, was standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They all clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and they're crying and saying, salvation belongs to God and sit on the throne and to the Lamb. Now let me bring your attention to this. They didn't say that they all wear white. They said that they all were dressed in white. There is a difference here, because they are from every nation and every tongue. And what do they hold in their hand? Oh my goodness. They're holding a palm branch. And why do they hold a palm branch? Because they are standing in Jerusalem on the Feast of the Ingathering. They are standing in Jerusalem in the Feast of Ingathering. And that's going to be including Africa. Africa is going to be standing there. And how does Africa know to do this? How does Africa know how to do this? The reason Africa know how to wave this is because their fullness has come already. And some people say, well, this has happened during the millennium. No, it's not happened during the millennium. It's happened before Yeshua came. The fullness takes place before Yeshua came. And right before he came, how do I know it? Because they said that they're of every tongue. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. When Yeshua come, according to the book of Zephaniah, you will not speak English. You will not speak any language except to the language of Hebrew. It's a good time to start practicing Hebrew, because when Yeshua comes, we're all going to speak one language. It's going to be Hebrew. This is happening right before Yeshua comes, because they are standing with every tongue. They're about to get the fullness. And then you see there that God is coming, the Messiah is coming, and he's wiping away tears from their eyes. Whose eyes? The Jewish people's eyes? No. The Jewish people are getting married to God. It's not the Jewish people who are crying. It's the Gentiles are crying, because God, that's his way, as Pastor Matt spoke about. He is extending the sukkah. And he said, oh, all of you here from every nation, tribe, tongue, you come on in. I'm marrying you too. I'm not just marrying the Jewish people. I'm marrying you. You have been the honored invitees, and you are woken up the groom, the black bride. He's going to be part of the bride, because the nations who have gone through the engrafting and process, they're all part of the bride. Each and every one of you will be part of this bride in this day. And this bride name is Israel. What do I want to say to you today will change your life? Friends, you are worthy. You are worthy to enter into this. Not because your DNA or your ancestry or your lineage. It's because what Yeshua has done on the cross. He died so that you can come in to be part of the greatest wedding between Israel and God. But part of this bride today, part of this bride, he does not want the wedding to take place. Maybe you are this part. I really believe that Africa is this part today that's resisting. It's resisting what God wants to do. You are resisting what God wants to do. And we pray today against this resistance, and we say, in the name of Yeshua, release Africa to be the bride who walk down the aisle, who walk down. They're coming to the wedding in the name of Yeshua. We are believing for this today. But you have to go to the right wedding. You have to go to the wedding where the shepherd and the sheep are there. When Yeshua is there and Israel is there. I am nothing short of a miracle. I did not raise up. I did not grow up knowing Yeshua. I came to the knowledge of Yeshua. And in some way, I am like an under shepherdman, under Yeshua, because I am a Jewish believer. My job as a Jewish believer is to say to you, to Africa today, you're going to the wrong wedding. Africa, you're going to the wrong wedding. Because in your wedding, the Jewish people are not there. It's a wedding for the church. No, it's a wedding for Israel. That's why they ask Yeshua the question, have you come to restore the kingdom to Israel? This is the time that God is calling you. Don't run away from the real wedding. Yes, there are responsibilities that you will have to sign in the contract. But guess what? This is the real thing. And he's telling to you today, get ready. Wave the lulav. Get ready. It's not a racial thing. It's not a national thing. It's a global thing. And he's inviting you today. So my question, what will the black bride? What will the black bride, what will it choose today? Be careful. Don't go to a wedding without Jewish people. Be careful. Do not go to a wedding where the footsteps of the groom on the wedding aisle are not clear and visible. The Jesus that I read about the first time I opened the New Testament and the Jesus that I saw in Christianity were not the same. And I invested my entire life trying to reconcile them. And I'm telling you today, my Christian brothers and sisters, come back to the real wedding. Come back. Don't run away. Find the footsteps. Know your worth as the most beautiful one on the heart, on the eyes of God. I want to pray for you right now. And then we're going to do something very special. We're going to take only 30 minutes because my computer will catch on fire. I'm pretty sure on that. We'll take 30 minutes. If you have questions, type them into the chat room, Facebook or YouTube. We will answer them live right now. This is the time that the Spirit of God is moving, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So if you have questions to me or Pastor Matt, we're going to take them together as a Messianic Jew and a Messianic pastor. But right now I'm praying in the name of Yeshua. The black bride is beautiful. Don't make excuse. Don't make excuse. You see, when the bride said in this passage, oh, I'm baking from the sun, I become black because the sun, the rabbis of Israel said, is because the bride has been in exile. This is what I see a lot happening today in America. People accuse, white people accuse this and accuse that. Stop accusing. There's only one accusing, and it's the accuser. Don't accuse anybody. But look inside yourself. Look inside this sukkah today in your heart. And know that His grace is sufficient. It's sufficient. It's sufficient for you. And as the house of Israel for 3,000 years went through adversity unlike any other group and overcome, so will you, because you receive the Spirit today. I pray for the Spirit of the house of Israel, the Spirit of the Jewish people to be upon you today. Those who want to receive the Spirit that will cause us never to fall and continue to build the sukkah and to continue to stand and to continue to prepare for the wedding. Receive it right now. Receive it in the name of Yeshua. God has brought you to this day for, without a doubt, for this purpose. Not that you think you're not good enough, but you thank Him for the grace. And look inside the sukkah that you are building today in your heart and said, Lord, I am building a new sukkah. It's a sukkah with the shepherd, Yeshua, with the sheep, with the Jewish people. And it is a sukkah that will have the fullness of finding the steps that lead me straight into the wedding. People of God, do not waste time. God has an appointment in the sukkah of Israel with you today. I pray all of those things in the name of Yeshua today. I pray that my words today did not offend, but convicted you to see just how beautiful and how much potential you have. Walk in your fullness today. God bless you. Amen. Amen.